It takes thousands of hours to become an astronaut. Right, Nina?
Oh, I'm not an astronaut. I'm a design consultant at the Container Store.
But you explore space.
I help you find space with our Alpha Closet systems.
And you're an expert.
Pretty good at it.
And you use satellites to communicate.
I'm doing more virtual in-home closet designs, but I wouldn't say...
We salute you, astronaut Nina, for helping us find space.
You're welcome.
Hurry to the Container Store to save 30% on all Alpha systems. At the Container Store, where space comes from.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Good morning, Hoop Ballers, and welcome to another edition of Hoop Ball's DFS Today. This is the January 2nd Happy New Year's edition, a day late, for the Saturday slate. I am Santino Caccone. I will be your host tonight, and I am joined with my good friend Aaron Asmus. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. It was a really successful end to the 2020 year. Had, I think, probably my best month ever in DFS this last December, so I'm ready to keep going.
All right, awesome. And that's the way to end it. And, I think we have another special guest. My little pup is trying to make an appearance, getting in the room over here. I don't know if you can hear him on there, but he just started his little barking. I think he wants to make an appearance on the pod. I'm trying to tell him to leave, but we'll see what happens. Can't control him while I'm on here. But yeah, so a couple things that we've been doing. I'm glad to hear that one of your best months, or if not best months of the year, happened in December to close out the year. Hopefully we can continue that streak and with you and everybody else into January, February, March, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And before we get in there, I want to tell everybody, make sure to continue to give us rate and reviews. Tell us stuff that you like, you don't like, what you want us to work on, what you want us to continue to pinpoint for you. And we read we read those reviews every time and try and cater to what everybody says. Do a little bit better of a job of getting you what the experience you want out of this podcast. And I also want to shout out again, Aaron. Aaron, tell them where they can find you on Twitter, buddy.
Yeah, so I'm at Asmus Sports on Twitter, and if you are a DFS Pass or a Fantasy Pass subscriber, I've tried to be really active in the Discord, and we've been talking about plays and lineups, and we're starting to get more and more people in there, and it's starting to become a really, really productive chat. So I'd encourage you to follow me on Twitter at Asmus Sports, or come say hi in the Discord and talk to myself, Santino, Mike, and just kind of the rest of us are just hanging out in there, just trying to talk the slate and really working on becoming better DFS players. Awesome.
It couldn't have said it any better. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter handle is at Santino Caccone. And I'm also on the Discord too, trying to get everybody's inactives there, the lineups, starting lineups in, and answering people's questions, whatnot. And I'm also Santino Caccone on that, or maybe just Santino. I can't honestly remember. I don't know if I have my last name in there. But buddy, right before we get in, let me talk to you guys a little bit about one of our favorite booking sites here is MyBookie. And I wanted to tell you guys, ever since that I started this podcast, people have been asking me for betting tips and all that stuff. I always get asked who you got, Lakers or Clippers, Rodgers or Mahomes, and I'll tell you what, I tell them, where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on, and that's why I tell people to bet with MyBookie. MyBookie's rep is rock solid, and they've got the best odds, contests, and promotions in the business. They're literally the only place I trust to handle my NBA-related bets. The one sportsbook guaranteed to give me the best lines for the national championship college football game on January 11th and on very NFL playoff games. You know me, and you know what I don't give out my stamp of approval easily. So to earn this, you've got to be the best at what you do. And MyBookie, in my book, in MyBookie, that's a good pun right there, I guess. Mike would find that funny because he doesn't have a good sense of humor. But MyBookie is the best sports book I almost said it again, out there. It's simple. Sign up, guys. Enter the promo code HoopBall. That's HOOPBALL, and get your deposit matched halfway up to $1,000. head over to MyBookie now if you want a little extra excitement to sports that you love and and the games you bet. So bet with the best and bet with MyBookie. And for this particular slate, we have 6 games, but one of these games is just the Showdown slate. Last time we were on here, Aaron, we kind of went a little bit longer on the Showdown than we wanted to. Not many people play Showdown when there's an actual slate on the board too. So I know we were talking about this before. We're going to try and do a little quick hitter on this Showdown slate, maybe 5 minutes or so, and then get into this nitty gritty 5-game slate that we have there. But this Showdown slate is going to be probably a fun one for a single game, as Showdown slates can be. We have Sacramento at Houston, and the spread for this one is currently. Give me 1 second. Actually, I don't have a spread for this one. There is none at the moment, but I'm assuming it's going to be about 4 points or so to the Rockets. They're home, so maybe 3 or 2. And I would say the over-under would be about 232.5, give or take. Knowing that and knowing the injury report that I'll get to now, we have Chris Clemens out. Eric Gordon is probable. Mason Jones out. Kenyon Martin Jr. out. Ben McLemore still out. And for the Kings, Daquan Jeffries is going to be out for a while. And Tyrese Halliburton, he will be out for this game and at least the next game. That's a big blow. But knowing that we just lost some value with Halliburton, we'll start with, big blow there. We'll start with the Kings, though. They are the away team. But where are you looking here? And again, without Halliburton, we lost a little bit of value. And we'll start with who you think would you want in the captain spot on the King spot, and where you're looking outside of them.
So that Halliburton news is pretty huge. I was just kind of working through the write-up right now for the article, and Halliburton was in a lot of the content, so I'll have to go back and switch that up a little bit. But
yeah, they just published it too. I want to say 10 minutes before we jumped on.
Okay. So his the big thing I was going to talk about for this game is that basically you can't play Marvin Bagley because his position in crunch time has been taken over by Halliburton. And the last 2 games, especially, Bagley has not played in the last 18 minutes of the game. He's just been straight out sat through the fourth quarter, mainly for Tyrese Halliburton. So thinking about that a little more, I think Corey Joseph at 4K becomes probably one of the more tremendous value. His role has been extremely secure already. He's played between 19 and 29 minutes, and without Halliburton in the game, I think you can probably around 25 minutes or so. I think that seems really secure, and they're very comfortable playing the two point guards with him next to Fox. So I think that really secures Joseph as a cash game value. In the captain spot, I think the guy you're looking at is De'Aaron Fox on the Kings side. Especially without Halliburton in the game now, they're going to need Fox's playmaking even more so. And just an up-tempo style game fits what he likes to do perfectly. And I think you can make some really creative lineups with him over Harden in the captain and really feel confident in the rest of your team. So I would lean Joseph, and I think kind of most of the starters are pretty good outside of Bagley. Holmes is a reasonable price at 66, Barnes 7K. So these are the guys I would be leaning on because you're more than likely playing Harden in the captain in a lot of your builds. So for a more cash game construction, lean on some of these Kings value guys.
Yeah, and I like how you wrote that up and had that one there. Without Halliburton, Fox is going to be the primary playmaker. I mean, he pretty much is anyway, but without Halliburton there taking some extra usage and playmaking and ball handling duties, it's all going to go on to Fox. And you mentioned Corey Joseph. He's going to see more time here. There's not many guards on this team that they play. I mean, they have guys like Glenn Robinson who can play in the wing and maybe keep Healed in there, but none of these guys really play too much. And without Jeffries, another guy that they like to play on the wing, a lot of Halliburton's minutes and usage and stuff are not, I wouldn't say necessarily usage, but minutes and ball distributing is going to fall on to Corey Joseph and his boring veteran savviness. So
Right.
at 4K, that's a pretty solid price tag there for someone who's going to be probably he should outperform that in his new role. And I like Rashawn Holmes too. He's pretty much taken that center job by storm. At first they were splitting it, but 3 minutes for Hassan Whiteside, he's pretty much phased out of this offense right now and this entire team. He went from 18 down to 15 down to 10, a little jump back to 13, and then 3 minutes. So he's just not even seeing the floor. And I think Bagley comes into a little bit more play, like you said, without Halliburton there, they were playing the 3-guard lineup. But Bagley's gonna and put Barnes at the 4. Probably gonna have to move Barnes back up to the 3 now because they have all these bigs that they can play and go a little bit bigger than normal. So I think those guys are the guys I like. I like Fox as the only option as the captain because if you're gonna really go cheap with your captain, I don't think you have much leeway here with who we're playing against on the other side of the ball.
I don't think so anymore. Especially Halliburton wasn't taking a whole lot of usage, but he was taking playmaking away from Fox, and I just don't see very many other paths to a big ceiling in your captain other than Harden or Fox.
Yeah. And sometimes, a lot of times I like to go with a little cheaper of a value play there at captain if you can find one. And a lot of teams have playmakers and good players, third options and stuff that can break out. This particular team, there's not many that I can fully count on there without taking a flyer on. And again, when we're getting to the other side of the ball, which we should just jump to now and get this this entire thing over with. But we have James Harden on the other side of the ball, and he has yet to get less than 55.5 points in any 3 of his games. So he's probably going to be the highest captain played guy. And then you have Christian Wood, who's been playing awesome lately since he got the job last year in Detroit, and the year before that when he was playing. And now right in here, he has at least 21 points in every game right now. John Wall is another option for me because he's been looking great throughout the preseason, and then that last game he looked really well as well. But those are the 3 guys I would play in the captain here. I'm going to just gravitate towards Harden, assuming I can fit a decent lineup outside of him just because this dude's definitely hitting value, and I want raw points here, especially with my captain getting that 0.5 extra, and we know he's going to be good for just say 30 points and 36 and 6 at the minimum. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with James Harden here.
Agreed. I watched that whole game against the Kings, and Harden could not have played worse. I mean, he was just awful the whole game. And this dude still managed to put up 33 points and 55 fantasy points. So it's like he's basically at a point in his career where he comes preloaded with 50 fantasy points if he plays, a reasonable amount of minutes. So, yeah, I mean, I would just start there. I would start Harden in your captain. I think Christian Wood is an interesting way to get a little different in a tournament. Correlate him with Harden. I'd be okay with Wood in the captain as a way to get really different in tournaments. But in general, stick with Harden, stick with Fox in the captain.
Yeah. And for the other guys on this team, like the cheap value plays, especially that you're going to need with Harden at your captain spot, PJ Tucker's a decent guy to look at, only 52. Daniel House at 5K. These are guys that are playing a lot of minutes and good amount of minutes that you can look at. You can also take a look at Tate. He played 21 minutes in the last game, had 4.6 boards, a steal. I mean, you're going to have to try and get creative if you're trying to get Harden and Fox in your lineup, especially with Harden at that captain spot. So there's a lot of good, decent value to be had here if that's the way you go.
Agreed.
All right, man. And anything you want to say before we jump on out of here and get to the good side of this slate?
I don't think so. Let's move it. Let's move it along.
All right. Okay, so we have the first game on the slate here. It is the the first game on the main slate, it is the Charlotte Hornets playing on the second night of a back-to-back. So we don't have any injury report. We also don't have any spread for this one or over-under because we need to know what happens with the Charlotte Hornets here. But they're playing the 76ers. And on the 76ers side, we have Mike Scott as probable. He should play. And Furkan Korkmaz is out. I was going to make another joke about that. I love that name. But he's not going to be playing in this one. Let's lean on to the Charlotte side of the things. Where are you looking here? It's assuming that everything comes out normal, everybody's going to play next game, and they come out of this game just looking good.
So, yeah, they just finished their game, and no one played above 28 minutes. So, for the most part, I think you're pretty okay going to any of these guys and then being relatively fresh. Usually on the second night of back-to-backs, I tend to shy more away if they get done with the 35 to 38 minute game. But all these guys, all their key rotation guys kind of played around the same 25 to 28 minutes. So I don't think that's going to be a huge worry for this slate. In general, though, Philly is one of those teams I try not to target. It's a 5-game slate, so we obviously have to look through a few of these plays, but for cash games, none of the Hornets are really popping out all that much. I've become the PJ Washington whisperer, or the number one fan, something along those lines in the Discord, and I think he's a guy until they bump up his price into the 6Ks, he's just too cheap at 5,500 for the role he plays and his ability to rack up stats in every category. It's just a good, and they're going to give him every opportunity to keep going out there for 28 to 32 minutes. And anytime you can get a good offensive big for that price tag, that's always going to be in play for me. The other guys they're just a little overpriced. They're kind of priced efficiently at this point. Hayward at 7,200, that's okay, but against Philly, he likely sees Ben Simmons' defense. It's kind of maybe in large field tournaments, but I don't like it. Rozier, 7K, same thing. He's going to have a tough defensive matchup. Danny Green's going to be out there. Graham at 6,300, probably as the cheapest one. I'd be fine. I'd probably be the most fine going here, just because of the price tag, and you're getting a little bit of a discount. But in general, this is just going to be a lower total game, as most games with Philly are. Even though they didn't play very many minutes tonight, it is the second night of a back-to-back. I think we can look for better spots.
Yeah, and the Sixers are just one of the best defensive teams in the league. You mentioned that, and it's just hard to go against them. It makes people especially in your center spot. I can't look at them a Bismack Biyombo, 4,900. Even if he was a little bit cheaper, I just can't look at him going against Embiid. Embiid's going to get this guy in foul trouble early. And something that our buddy Mike likes to say is he likes to target backup centers on when there's to find value with backup centers against Philly. So I wouldn't mind giving Jalen McDaniels a slight look if you're just going pure punt. He might see himself playing 15 to 20, maybe a little bit more minutes in this one as well, just because we expect Biyombo to be in foul trouble. I don't know if they can just throw PJ Washington at the center spot against an Embiid just because of how big and physical he is. He put him in foul trouble too. So
isn't McDaniels really small though? Isn't he? He's like a twig, right?
Yeah, he's a banger though, but he's not a big guy. But he's a banger guy, and he can eat fouls if needed.
Okay.
So to me, he's purely a pump play. So I'm not going to go out of my way to play him. But if you're just looking at minimum salary type guy, you could do worse than him, I would say. Other than that, I don't know if this. I don't really like anybody in the backcourt. I like we mentioned the other day, me and Mike, I believe we also mentioned it, me and you. Gordon Hayward's just criminally underpriced at the moment. I just don't like this matchup, like you mentioned. At 7,200, he can easily exceed value. I just don't want to target against the Sixers really too much. If I had to pick someone, if you think this game maybe gets a little out of hand or so, even though the Hornets have been playing great, they did just get beat by the Grizzlies by 15 points here. So if you think something changes here, maybe Miles Bridges, because they'll play him more off the bench, get some more minutes. Maybe LaMelo Ball gets some more minutes. But I think there are better people deeper in the slate that we'll get to around the price tag. I would more target the guys on the Philly side, and we can jump right into that, man. Who you looking at on the Phillies on the Sixers side? Sorry, you guys, my voice is pretty much shot today, and I'm trying my best, and
He's
I keep
powering
going.
through though. That's all that counts.
I'm firing through it. But on the Sixers, we have our three big guns. Seth Curry's putting work in there, and then we have everybody else who's hit or miss depending on the game. But is there anybody here that you can just lock into? And can you lock into Embiid at 10K, knowing that there's only one guy higher priced on the slate?
I think he's going to project really well. Just again, there's just the game context is so good for the Sixers. There's going to be blowout risk, obviously, and you have to account for that. So I think this is a little bit of a wait and see play here. If we kind of get a feel for ownership throughout the day, if another popular build emerges, then maybe Embiid's lower owned and we can get him as a really awesome tournament play at lower ownership, because I just don't know if there's very many better raw projection plays than Embiid against Bismack Biyombo, who can't defend him, and if he gets him in early foul trouble, then definitely PJ Washington definitely can't defend him. Then there's definitely nobody on the team who can slow him down. Then it's just a matter, can the Hornets keep it close? So the answer is yes. I think he's a good guy you should work through some builds with, but I don't know if he's a lock at this point.
Yeah, I can see that. I think there's at least one other top flight center play that I really like as well. But Embiid for 10K, he's very safe for me. I think he's going to be very safe in cash games, assuming as long as this game stays close. To me, he's a very safe investment in cash games. I can't see, like you mentioned, no one can stop him on the other side. There's just nobody physical enough or big enough or fundamental enough, and that last one specifically at Biyombo, to contain him if he's on his even B game. So I think he's going to be super safe in cash games, maybe fairly owned in tournament play. I would expect at least 30 to 40% ownership, just seeing the matchup.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't know. I'm just playing it by, I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing. No one can touch him on Charlotte, so they'll play him a little bit more. Right. So I think you can pivot away from him in tournaments a little bit more, but in cash, I think he's super safe. Outside of him, Simmons, he's been playing really well, but a little pricey for me. I would rather just try and get Embiid if possible. If you have that $1,000 laying out there, Harris at 7.3, that's decent value for him. He can get up to 8K. I like him a little bit more than Hayward in this one, just because the matchup works for him. And I would be looking at either one of Milton or Curry as well as my last guys if you're around that price range. I think we're going to find better value, but they are options for me as well if you're playing a couple people around that price tag.
Yeah, I think Seth Curry, maybe not necessarily for this game, but he's a guy who can really spike for a huge game. He just gets, and he's been absolutely launching from three, and he's had 3 really good results, or 3 out of 5 really good results in the early going over 30 DK points in games that were closer. I think he's really that third banana on the team, and he's really helped open up that Philly offense. He's a guy that I think this team needs to play really well for them to take the next step with Simmons and Embiid as the cornerstones. So he's a guy I want to keep him in mind for just about every slate as a potential tournament option and to work him in.
Yeah, and I like how they have Simmons in more of just a do-it-all type of role, not a scorer. So he's kind of the fourth option now on the team if Seth Curry keeps playing the way he is. So you have Embiid, Harris, Curry taking the shots, and Simmons playing great defense and distributing the ball, rebounding, doing everything that he does without having to worry about people asking him if he could shoot.
Right.
But yeah, let's go to this next game here. We have the New York Knicks against the Indiana Pacers. These guys played each other already this season, and we had a surprising no, I was going to say a surprising win, but it wasn't a win. The Pacers won by 14 in this one. We had some different things that we saw here. RJ Barrett had his best shooting game of the season in that one, and I'll get to the spread here. It is 215 just 215 and negative 11 for the Pacers at home. One of the lower raw projections on this team, or on this slate, and we have for the injury report, TJ Warren is going to be out for the foreseeable future with that foot injury. I think he just undergone surgery as well, so
yeah,
he's going to be out for, I would say, months. I don't know how many, but definitely in plural with the months. We have Goga Batadze out, Brian Bowen the second out, Jeremy Lamb still trying to recover from that ACL injury. He's out. We have Frank Ntilikina out on the Knicks side, Dennis Smith Jr., Omari Spellman, Obi Toppin all out. Emmanuel Quickley keeps coming in at questionable, so we'll keep an eye on that. Kevin Knox is probable, and Alec Burks is questionable again. So knowing all that, we'll start with the Knicks side. I'll jump in here. RJ Barrett had his best shooting game of the season against them. One of the few efficient ones. He started 8 of 8 from the field, and he was 9 of 11 at half. He finished 11 of 15. He finished with 44 and a half DK points, had 8 rebounds, 5 assists, also season highs. The 8 tied. At 6,500, that's not bad, but I can't expect him to shoot 11 of 15 from the field again. He hasn't shot nearly close to that since his best shooting game has been 4-12, 7 of 17. So he's just not an efficient shooter. I don't know what happened in that first game. But a guy that we're looking at playing really well lately is Julius Randle at 9,100. I think that's slightly expensive for me. I don't want to do that on this slate. But he has been playing really well, and he has a couple games with 3 games with over 7 assists already. So he is kind of turning into one of the primary playmakers as well on this team. And then we have guy like Elfrid Payton, who they pretty much go with how Elfrid Payton goes. If he's playing pretty good, this team's going to compete. If he's playing pretty bad, this team's going to play pretty bad. So they go with Elfrid Payton. At 6,100, I also don't want him in this matchup. There's not too many people on this team that I'm looking at. But I think if Alec Burks plays at 5,400, he would be an option, and I like him a little bit better than both of those Sixer guys I mentioned. We saw Austin Rivers come back, so he's going to get some minutes too. But I think Alec Burks is outside of Randle, the secondary scorer on this team, whether he starts or comes off the bench, and I think that's a good value at 5,400. So he'd be like the only guy I'm looking at on the Knicks squad. How about you, Aaron?
Yeah, I think you hit it. Just these guys are just a little bit overpriced. Julius Randle, he had those 2 huge games where he had the 1 triple-double and then the 1 almost triple-double. But he's just not a $9,100 player. Just historically, he's playing the massive monster minutes, which is great for a floor, but he's almost priced. He's priced to perfection at this point. He's he's not a guy who's going to give you a lot of blocks and steals. He's not going to help out there. I just can't do it. Just looking at the price tags, I'd much rather have Sabonis at 94. I'd much rather have Embiid in the monster matchup for just $900 more. So, it was, what did you say? It was an 11. It was they were 11-point dogs, something along those lines.
Yes, they are 11-point. Oh my God, my throat's dying on me. They are 11-point road dogs. So
that's. We can find better spots here. Like, I would rather invest the 900 more in, Philly, who's likely going to be, 12 point favorites. If they blow out Charlotte, it's very likely because Embiid just absolutely dominated in 3.5 quarters. So Randall's going to be a fade for me. RJ Barrett is a guy I'm not looking at in cash games yet, but the shooting role, the minutes, the ball control is all there. He's just not doing very much with it in these last 4 games. So I I haven't quite gone through all my cash game builds yet, but in a 5-game slate, short 5-game slate, 6,500 for a guy we can be really confident in 35 minutes, who's going to take a bunch of shots. He's going to be probably one of the lead playmakers on the team. I could see it in cash, and definitely in just about in any tournament format, especially if people are just scared off the bad efficiency. In a bigger slate, maybe you wouldn't go there, but I think RJ Barrett is squarely in play for either format. And the other guy is Elf Payton. Projections have loved this guy, basically since all their other guards have been out. And unfortunately, we didn't get the minutes ceiling we saw in the Cleveland game that we did in the Toronto game. But if we have that same situation again where all the guards are out, then yeah, I think you can go right back to Elf at 6,100. It's just really cheap for a guy who we could probably is going to project in the 33 to 34 minute range. And historically, he's a fantasy monster, contributes and rebounds, assists, and points, and a guy who regularly competed for triple doubles. And so while I don't like investing heavily in 11-point dogs on the road, I think there's definitely a couple plays here, mainly RJ Barrett, Elf, and then I think Mitra a little bit, but I think mainly those first two guys.
Yeah, and it'll be RJ Barrett has taken 15 shots in every game. It's just a matter of if he can hit them. And it'll be interesting to see Alec Burks and Emmanuel Quickley's designation before we get in there. If they're both in, it lowers the ceiling for RJ Barrett and Elfrid Payton. More so Elfrid Payton, because two people are going to be gunning for his minutes. Barrett and Randle, they're safe for 35 plus minutes in this environment. But the Payton is key on if Burks plays and and we have Emmanuel Quickley, because people were calling for Quickley to start at the point guard, and Alec Burks is going to see his minutes and his shots as well. So keep an eye on those news, and we will also be letting you know what's going on in the Discord and all that stuff. But let's flip it on over to the Pacer side, and you mentioned a guy who is only 400 more or 300 more than Julius Randle, and that's Domantas Sabonis. I mentioned before, if there's a guy close to Embiid's price that I really like as well, and this is him, 9,400. He's just so safe. And the first time they played these two teams played, he put up 32 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, and he put up 58 DK points. This guy's just efficient. He's safe, and this is a good matchup for him. So I really, really like him in here, and I like a lot of this team. We don't have T.J. Warren in there anymore, so that's some usage there that's going around. And a guy like Justin Holiday is not a usage type guy, so he's not going to absorb it even if he starts. Or Aaron Holiday, if he starts, he's more of a secondary type or third dairy, I guess you could say, or fourth dairy, I guess you could say, playmaker in this starting lineup with Oladipo, Brogdon, Sabonis. So he's not going to get a ton of usage there as well. Then you got a guy like Doug McDermott, McBuckets, who would just going to get a couple more shots and see some more minutes here as well. But he's not a usage type player. He just gets open shots as 3-point shooters do. So I think a lot of the Warren usage goes to guys like Sabonis, Brogdon, and Oladipo mainly, and they're all squarely in play for me. And Miles Turner, with the way he's been playing lately, he's slightly in play for me too. I just think there's very good value at center, and I like Oladipo for 300 more if we're going pure points. So those are the three guys I'm pretty much looking at heavily. As long as this game can stay close, they should all play 30 minutes, and they can all eat value here.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I won't expand too much on it, but Brogdon and Oladipo aren't priced efficiently for TJ Warren being out yet, I don't think. I think these guys could probably get up another $500 to $700 pretty easily. And the way their rotations have been working is, especially what's been their coach has played a really condensed rotation, and especially in the last couple games, it's been really encouraging to see Victor Oladipo get to 34 minutes in each game. And we kind of forget that, when Victor Oladipo is healthy, he was an all-star. He was a really high usage guy who could contribute on the defensive end, defensive stats, and get after it on the boards and be a secondary playmaker. And we kind of forget that, I think, because it's been a while since he's been healthy and been that sort of player. So at 6,700, that's against the Knicks, it's just a real tough price tag to pass on. I think probably the same for Malcolm Brogdon at 7,400, where just with Warren out, all his usage, I think, funnels mainly to the three main guys, as we mentioned. And I just think these two guys especially are particularly underpriced. And I think your only concern is if the Knicks can fight back and keep it close.
Yeah, and that's the main concern there. If this game is within early double digits heading into the fourth or midway through the fourth, you're going to expect that we're going to see these guys on the floor for pretty much the whole game. So that's the one key. If they can keep it within 13 or so points for the game, we're going to get a lot of value availability for these guys. Well, let's get on to this third game on the slate. We got 3 more left to tackle quickly. Before I do that, I want to shout out our guys at Manscaped. So listen up, fellas. Today we have a new Manscaped product alert. Manscaped just released the Weed Whacker Nose and Ear Hair Trimmer. Take a look in the mirror, and I guarantee you'll see hair sticking out of those holes. It's time to keep your ear and nose hair looking as nice as your downstairs. And if you haven't been listening to the show, that you know that we have they have a couple new products out there. The Lawnmower 3.0 has been fantastic. I myself have used it. It's as good as the name sounds, a Lawnmower 3.0. And they also have it in the Perfect Package 3.0. It comes with the Lawnmower 3.0, some nice underwear, some deodorant for your downstairs, and a couple other things. Or if you want to just go with the Weed Whacker, this thing's, I haven't personally tried it, but it's getting better reviews than the Lawnmower 3.0, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So if something's getting better reviews than that, I don't know how it can be not great. But go to manscaped.com, get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code HoopBall20. That's HOOPBALL20. Then that's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com by using the promo code HoopBall20. HOOPBALL20. So what are you waiting for, guys? Go on over now and get these amazing products. So let's get on to this next game. We have the OKC Thunder versus the Orlando Magic. And before I throw out that spread, I do want to tell you, guys, if you were listening earlier, we now have a Sacramento-Houston point spread. I was fairly close. It is 3.5 points. Houston is the favorite here. And it is 234.5 over under currently. And Charlotte and Philly also got in a point spread here. It's 9.5 point favorites. Philly at home, okay. And the over-under is 214. So one of the lower games as well with that New York Knicks Indiana one. So it's fairly close, kind of what we probably figured. But yeah, let's get back to the OKC Thunder game. And the OKC Thunder are 8-point road underdogs, and the over-under is 218.5. On the injury report, we have pretty much the same thing for the Thunder. Ty Jerome, Trevor Ariza out. And the Magic got a little bit shaken up. It was Al-Farouq Amino, James Ennis, and Jonathan Isaac, just the 3 staples on here. But now we have added Evan Fournier as questionable. Chuma Okeke out, and Terrence Ross has now been upgraded to probable after missing that last one. Let's start with the Thunder here. We have Shai at 79, 61 for Al Horford, and then everybody else is just lower priced here in that mid 5K or under. Anybody you're looking at here, and they are kind of fantasy friendly as long as the game is not a blowout like that last one. But anybody you're looking here for pure value, because that's pretty much what this team is value with those cheap plays.
Yeah, so I think with the Thunder, the one thing you're always going to have to be watching the news. I think you're going to see, Horford and George Hill and some of their older guys sit on occasion, kind of as they did the other day. So if that's the case, then that's just a insane boost to the other guys remaining on the team. Shea, I'll ask you, with Shea, has he met your expectations this year as kind of as much as everyone was hyping him up as kind of the usage monster?
He's pretty much controlling the ball most of the games, but a lot of times people thought he was instantly going to be Russell Westbrook and get 29-9 or 23-9-9, which has not happened yet. He hasn't gotten too many defensive stats, which he was really good at in the last couple of years. And his efficiency has just not really been there. The last 2 games he's taken 20 shots combined, so that's something that kind of scared me. I know the last against the Pelicans, they just got blown out, so I could see that. But he was 8 of 10 in the Orlando game last time they faced, and making 8 shots and only 10 attempts. I know he scored 23 points, but I would have expected him to be a little bit more aggressive when he's that hot. So that kind of off-put me. Right now, it would seem before the year that this would be underpriced for him, but maybe teams are just I'm not sure. He hasn't really exceeded value here, so he's kind of in that iffy zone for me as right here. But he did put up 41.25 points against Orlando on the 29th of December, and he only took those 10 shots. So a little bit different than what we thought, but maybe he's just learning how to hit his stride and be that guy when he hasn't been that yet up to this point.
The holidays are bustling with activity. Handle it all with Happy Honda Days. Shopping for that perfect present? The Honda Accord and Civic Sedan can get you there. Take on the season with financing as low as 0.9% APR on the 2020 Accord and as low as 1.9% APR on the 2020 Civic Sedan on select models for well-qualified buyers.
See dealer for financing details.
Have a BLT the Carl's Jr. way for just $2.99 with charbroiled beef, creamy ranch, and more beef. The new BLT Ranch Double Cheeseburger for just $2.99. Part of charbroiled double deals at Carl's Jr. Feed your happy. Offer valid for limited time at participating Carl's Jr. restaurants. Price and participation may vary. Tax not included.
Yeah, it's kind of been strange. Obviously you had the Pelicans blowout in his last game, so you can probably throw that out a little bit. But the other 3, he kind of just clawed his way to value almost in. He was really inefficient, but you love to see the usage in the first 2 games with 21 and 20 shots and 9 and 7 assists. It's like, that's great. That's what you expected, him to be the man. But then you wonder, okay, why is he only taking 10 shots in each of the last 2 games? So I want to keep going back to the well. I want to keep going attacking Shea and just keep believing that this usage is going to be real, and the fact that they just don't have very many other playmakers. It's going to be Al Horford, but I don't think they're ever really going to extend his minutes. George Hill is kind of the same thing. I think they want to keep their veterans in that 25 to 28 minute range. And then outside of that, it's like who else is really going to play make on this team, or who's going to create their own shot? Maybe a little bit of Baisley. Dort has been really good, but he's not. Those guys aren't reliable shot creators yet. So at 7,900, I think the Indiana guys are probably a little better for cash games, but I'm still interested in Shea at this price tag. And if he keeps struggling, the price is going to keep going down, and hopefully we can really get a spiked game here pretty soon that at lower ownership if people decide to give up on him.
Yeah, and that's the thing there. Tournaments, he's the pivot play now. All of a sudden, he was very, very chalky when we first started. We thought he was going to take his role and run in stride with it, but I think he's still learning the ways of being the only guy on a team here. So it's going to be interesting, but I think he's better, as you mentioned, in tournament play as the slightly less ownership and a pivot there. Everybody else on this team, it's hard to feel too safe with everybody. Baisley, Dort, they have their hit or miss type of games. Only 5K they'll be in play for me when I'm over there. But if Alec Burks plays, I like him. He's just safer for me than these 2 guys. And the 2 Philly guys that I mentioned are all similar priced. So it all depends on his availability, but there's not too much that I'm gravitating towards on this squad. If we have people out, like you mentioned, Horford and Hill, they might miss it. I know they missed the back-to-back, but if they just say, oh, we're going to rest him for this one or something, then there's a lot more value to be found here. Then you can look at guys like Diallo, guys like Muscala or Isaiah Roby for under 4K, all three of them. And then you can also go back to Baisley and Dort because they'll just get a little bit more shots and looks there. But with everybody healthy, I'm kind of with if you're not going to go Shea, they're not going to absolutely leave my player pool, but they're not going to be one of the guys that people I highlight and want to put in my lineups.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it better.
Awesome, man. So let's get on over to the Orlando Magic side of the ball. And we got Vus at 8,700, Fultz there at 6,200. We might not have Evan Fournier, but we should have Terrence Ross. How did you feel about what Cole Anthony did last time with Fournier getting hurt? No Ross. He played 35 minutes. Can you expect that again? Can you expect Dwayne Bacon, if Fournier is out, to play a bunch of minutes again as well? Or do you just stick with the two to three guys that are really bringing it every game here?
Yeah, I think Anthony's I think you need Fournier out there, but they're a little bit of a thin team with on the wings, especially once one of these key guys is out. So if Fournier ends up missing the game, I think you can go right to Ross as a direct pivot. A guy, he should be locked into 30 minutes fairly easily. He'll, with a bunch of shots, and we know Ross isn't shy whatsoever, and he's been really hot with his shot so far. And hopefully he can walk into a couple other stats as well if he ended up getting the start. I think it's an excellent matchup. I think it would be a great spot to get some Ross value. You mentioned Anthony. I don't think Anthony would be in play in cash, but his profile, especially if this game gets out of hand and Orlando's leading in the fourth quarter, they're going to go to Anthony in the fourth, and I think he's been pretty good. He's been one of the better rookies to start. He's shown ability to really get after it on the boards and show a little bit of playmaking chops, and you love to see the 18 shots he took in the blowout game against Philly when Fournier got hurt. So I think there's a pretty secure role there, regardless of the injury situation. So he's kind of been hovering in that 16 to 19 minute range with everyone healthy. With Fournier out, I think you can conceivably see that get up to 23, 24 minutes for 4,600 on a short slate. I think you can do a lot worse in tournaments. And then Vooch is a guy who just doesn't ever seem to make the cash pool for me, and I kind of kick myself every time why he doesn't. But again, this slate, it's like he's 8,700, but I'd rather play Sabonis in cash. I'd rather play Embiid in cash. So he's kind of just a tournament pivot for me, and I think it's a great matchup. He has a locked-in workload. You know exactly what you're going to get. He's one of the better rebounding centers in the game. He's a really great playmaking center. He'll give you a little bit extra with the three ball. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know why I don't ever click Vooch's name in cash, but he just kind of always seems like he's on the outside in for me.
Interesting. And I like myself some Vooch too, but I'm with you. I mentioned Embiid before and Sabonis as well. I'd rather pay up to get them. But if you can't pay up, if you're just out of money and you're under 9K, I think he's just so safe. So if you're loving your lineup and you're stuck at 9, I'd like him here. But if you have that 700 extra to get Sabonis, I'd much prefer that as well to this. But I wouldn't hate it if Vus is my guy in a cash game. Pivot-wise, I think he does make sense. As you mentioned, he's going to be under-owned in tournament play, so he's a nice pivot there. As far as Gordon and Fultz, I like Fultz a little bit more. Gordon's kind of hit or miss, and it's going to depend on the availability of Evan Fournier to make me look at some of these other guys. If he plays, that's 30 minutes right there. If he doesn't, Terrence Ross becomes very, very good looking to me at 5,200. I just mentioned we've been mentioning people around this price range all night. He would jump the line in terms of most of the other guys that I've mentioned already on Philly. Everybody, even he would jump the line a little bit more than Burks as well. That would put him just slightly above Burks in that 5.5 type K range if he plays and Fournier doesn't play. Because we're going to see someone enter the starting lineup of Vooch, Fultz, Gordon, and then we got 2 spots there. Dwayne Bacon's been seeing himself in the lineup. I just can't trust Dwayne Bacon. He's just Dwayne Bacon. But right. If Fournier is out, that's 30 minutes to go around, and then someone's going to enter the lineup. It could be Cole Anthony. It could be Terrence Ross there, or it could be another guy like Gary Clark, and they go a little bit bigger like they did in the bubble there. And something else to keep an eye on is Chuma Okeke is out for this game and for an indefinite amount of time. So he's going to be a couple weeks out, and he's about a 17, 18, 19-minute player a game. So that's about 50 minutes to go around if Fournier doesn't play. And those minutes are going to go to mostly Gary Clark is going to pick them up outside of the starters. Gary Clark, Cole Anthony, Dwayne Bacon, Terrence Ross, those types of guys are going to get extended minutes. So if we see Gary Clark enter the starting lineup at minimum salary, I'm going to have a very long look at this guy. I won't have the same look at Dwayne Bacon. I just don't. His floor is worse to me. I know Gary Clark's floor isn't that high either, but I just much prefer him and his better rebounding and like that. But Terrence Ross to me is a very good play here. Cole Anthony gets a solid bump if there is no Fournier as well, because he should see more than the 18 minutes a game he was playing before last one.
Yeah, agreed. I think you hit that perfectly.
Yeah, and then the blowout potential at this game, Cole Anthony would see more minutes in that as well compared to everybody else that we mentioned. All right, man. Let's get into this next one. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Atlanta Hawks. Hawks are on the second night of a back-to-back. Hawks have just beaten the Brooklyn Nets, and they are now 4-1 as well. They look really good, but we don't have anybody on the injury report just yet. Game just finished not too long ago, so we'll come to that. Gallo did not play this game. That was one of the big guys that didn't play. We'll see. We'll have some idea on his status tomorrow. And then on the Cavs side, we have Dellavedova out, Kevin Love out, Isaac Okoro out, Kevin Porter Jr. out, Dylan Windler out. We'll start. Almost forgot it, man. The over-under is 233, and the spread is the Hawks are 6.5-point home favorites. So let's start. I'll start with the Cavs here. We have Andre Drummond at 9,200. So this is interesting to me. Clint Capella. Just mentioned Gallo. We'll have a better view on him. Clint Capella. Do they risk him on a back-to-back this early in the season? That is going to be super interesting. And if I had to guess, I would say no. I just can't see that. So John Collins, and if Gallo, John Collins is their only big man. I guess you could say Bruno Fernando as well in Atlanta. They're going to try and contain Drummond. He's going to be in a fairly good matchup. But for me, I do prefer Sabonis' matchup as well in this one. But at 9,200, there's just a lot of very good high-end centers in this slate. But he would be in play if John Collins was trying to guard him one-on-one, especially if he got John Collins 2 quick early fouls. There's nobody in that front court that can guard an Andre Drummond. So he's definitely in play for me. I do prefer if you can get to Embiid and Sabonis, but I don't think it's too far off for me.
No, not at all.
Yes.
And I think you called that perfectly. And I just checked the Capella minutes. He played 29 minutes in this game against Brooklyn. And they stated multiple times that they want to be careful with Capella. They want to, they might look at this Drummond matchup and be like, holy crap, we can't play Collins 35 minutes against Drummond. Just the size difference would be immense. So, but yeah, I still think that would still be a positive for Collins, because I think even if Capella did play, you'd probably get him like 15 to 20 minutes, maybe just like, hey, go play a couple rotations against Drummond kind of a deal. And, we'll just severely hold back your normal minutes rotation if he did play. So yeah, I mean, I think Drummond's right there again too. And it's kind of, as we go through the slate, I hopefully you're picking up on that these expensive centers are really where you should be investing your money. I don't think it's crazy at all to spend for two of these guys and just really build in a really rock solid floor ceiling combination.
Yeah, and you could even get the good thing about Sabonis is he's power forward eligibility. So you can put him in two additional spots instead of just center and utility if you really just wanted to go center heavy. And it seems like we're both on the same page that we like the big guys in this slate. It's just one of those big nights. But outside of Drummond, we have some decent matchups. We might I like Sexland. They've been playing pretty well. I'm gravitating toward Darius Garland lately just with that $1,000 difference, and he does more of the peripherals that I like. He's a bit safer than Sexton. If Sexton has an off shooting night, he doesn't supplement it with he just gets about 3.5 assists a game, and he doesn't grab any rebounds or do too much outside of scoring. So I usually gravitate towards Sexton. I almost said Sexton. Gravitate towards Sexton away from Sexton. I gravitate towards Garland because his floor is safer and you get that discount with them. But Larry Nance is also starting at 6,900. It's off-putting to me. I wish he was around the 6K range or even 5.7. That'd be awesome. But is a little off-putting to me up there. But another guy, if you wanted a deep dive into a look, Javale Mcgee at 4,100. He's been playing pretty well. I know he only plays 15 minutes, but he's hitting value pretty much every game. It's slight value though too. It's not a huge ceiling. You're never going to get a huge ceiling with this guy because he's not going to play 20 minutes. But he's ripping down rebounds and he's shooting more. He's hitting a 3 in 3 of 5 games, which is weird. I never thought I'd be saying that. But he's a guy I would be looking at around that price tag because there's not too many people under the 4K without injuries that we're getting to on this slate.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with Cleveland that you kind of hit on it a little bit, but these top 4 guys, Drummond, Sexton, Nance, and Garland, they're playing so many minutes. They're just out there the whole freaking game. Garland 38, 37 the last 2 games. Sexton was 37 and 41. Larry Nance 36 and 43, 35 the game before that. Drummond 25, 33, 26. So he's a little more volatile, but I think a lot of that is foul trouble. I think that's a great thing about Cleveland is especially as these guys are performing. It's kind of hard to beat their minutes security. Just about with just about anybody in the NBA. And I think especially in Sexton and Garland, they really believe in those guys as their future backcourt, and their coach is obviously very comfortable just keeping them out there the entire game.
Yeah, and we have 4 injuries in Deladova, Okoro, Porter, Kevin Love. Those guys would be eating into the minutes here, but without them, there's not many people in the rotation, especially in the backcourt, to challenge Sexland's minutes production there. So we're going to continue to see them play until they get a little bit healthier. Kevin Porter Jr. probably much more than Matthew Deladova, but till then, they're going to be playing 35-plus minutes unless it just gets to a blowout. And even then, I think they run their young kids out there, even if they're down by 20 or they're up by 20.
Agreed.
But yeah, let's go on to the Atlanta Hawks here. We have they just beat the Nets on the rematch game. We have Trae Young as the highest guy on this slate. Very good matchup for him. I don't know if he's ever has a bad matchup with the way he shoots the ball and the usage that he conducts. But at 10-2, he, to me, I can never say I'm never looking at Trae Young just because of the things that I just mentioned. He's always going to shoot. He's always going to command a ton of usage. He can shoot anywhere on the court, and he's Trae Young. I'm just not going to elaborate. I'll just say, and he's Trae Young. So at 10-2, not terrible, but I do prefer Embiid to him. And I do prefer a lot of these big guys here. On the flip side to that, I think John Collins, everything I just said about Drummond and you said about Drummond, I think John Collins, especially if he plays center, he's in a good matchup. He's been known to stretch the floor, and Drummond's not a type of guy that you want guarding people away from the rim. So I think he'd be in a decent matchup. The one thing about him, and that's been scaring me, is he just hasn't looked great. To the other game against Brooklyn, he looked very good. He had his breakout game finally, but outside of that, he has been struggling, and especially in the Discord, you hear everybody going, what's going on with Collins? But he did another 20 and 8 tonight. He took the second most shots on the team, or third most shots on the team, or second. So that was good to see. And if Capella's not there, there should be extra rebounds to go around, assuming Andre Drummond doesn't eat them all up. So I don't mind. I like Collins at that 7,500 price tag. We haven't said too many people around that range there. So I'd be gravitating towards him out of the people we haven't really talked about, or there just hasn't been people priced around there. Outside of him, we get back to the jumbled forward guard wing rotation, whatever you want to call it, with Bogdo, Hunter, Reddish, Huerter, Gallo. If Gallo doesn't play and Capella doesn't play, it opens up so much value for all of these guys. Hunter had a very good game tonight. At 53, he would be in play to me. Bogdo would be in play to me at 58. Reddish, Huerter, they all interchange when they're going to have that big game. So it's hard for me to pinpoint which one specifically, but I like to get my shears of one of them and hope that's the one it goes. I know that especially if Capella and Gallinari don't play, they're all going to play at least 25 minutes and play there. So the minutes floor is going to be there. And Hunter and Reddish seem like the two guys that are in the starting lineup and have more secure roles. So can lean towards that. But Bogdanovic is running the second unit. So he's another look. And Huerter is just, I never play him, but he's always there and he's performing pretty well. But I'd probably lean towards Hunter and Reddish, as I tend to do.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. It's a jumbled mess of all their wings. Bogdan has the best usage. He takes the most shots. The other guys, Hunter and Reddish, are much more likely to contribute in the other categories, but they don't have nearly as much opportunity. And I think one issue we're going to run into is, Trae Young's going to get his in a close game no matter what. And the other guys are going to kind of have to fight each other for more usage. Last year, John Collins was able to really break out because there just wasn't a whole lot there on Atlanta. And now you add Bogdan, you add Clint Capella, you add, DeAndre Hunter, Reddish, and Huerter are all 1 year older. They're not, they're just a little more polished as players. Rajon Rondo is a really ball-dominant guy. When Gallinari's in there, he's a guy, he's there to put up 12 to 15 shots a game. So it's going to be a little hit and miss with Atlanta. And, I don't think, we just have to be very careful with Collins when he's at this price tag, that we're just going to be very matchup specific. Otherwise, I think we're just going to be disappointed with his output.
And it's with these wings, it's very upsetting because I like so many of them, but we just don't know who's who on what night, and that's the upsetting thing because they're just so deep. When people are out, we can look at them more, but when they're all if Gallo plays and or Capella, then it's puts me to these guys just because their minutes should be there in the 20 minutes range, but you just don't know. The more bodies we put in there and talented bodies, the worse I feel about them, and it's just it's an unfortunate situation. For fantasy, not for them. It's a good problem for them to have, but not for us.
Exactly.
All right, man. Let's go on to this last game of the night: the Toronto Raptors against the New Orleans Pelicans. And the cool thing about this whole thing, this game is a 7:30 start. So we have 3 7:00 games and 2 7:30 games at Eastern time. So we should have. Hopefully we have the 2 7:30 lineups and injury report fully, but we should have at least. I'm saying we're going to get at least 80% of all this in before lineups lock. Hopefully more, but we might have an entire which we barely ever have, 100% of information before lineup locks. So that's going to be huge if we can get that, and that makes all the difference. We don't have to wait on, is someone playing in the late game? He's questionable, so and so. But I think we could do it. And right now we have Toronto. Pretty much the Hawks are the one team that we're waiting for in the late game. But we have the Raptors at 2-point underdogs on the road, and the over-under is 216 in this game. On the injury report, we have Wenyen Gabriel as out for the Pelicans, and Patrick McCaw, who's just a staple on here, as out for the Raptors. Let's start with the Raptors, man. And we have the three big guys that we have around 83 to 77, and then everybody else is a little bit cheaper. Where are you leaning towards in this environment here? We saw them get their first win, and we saw Pascal Siakam not be a part of it. So what do you make of that? And where do we go from here?
Yeah, I mean, that whole situation was just so frustrating. The NBA, if these sports leagues need to figure out that, hey, if they want sports betting and DFS to be just really ingrained into their viewership and have it be a big part of the league, like they can't have situations where Toronto is ruling out one of their star players like 5 minutes before they tip off. Like, it's just, I don't know, that it's just ridiculous to me that, a league that has said, hey, we want to be really involved in sports betting, but, we're going to let a team rule out a guy without any warning, basically. So mini rant over. Anyway, back to DFS. I like all these guys. I think I've said, all year as with podcasts that Siakam, Lowry, and Van Vliet just sneakily all got massive upgrades in the offseason when they got rid of Ibaka's usage, and Marc Gasol, who wasn't really a high usage guy, but he was a guy they kind of ran playmaking through, and all of that just really falls to their top three guys now. They replaced them with a Chris Boucher and Aaron Baines, guys who just aren't really taking a whole lot of shots, and they're playing. I think they're playing a lot smaller with Powell, so that just inherently helps all the guys play a little faster. There's going to be more possessions. And against the Pelicans, the Pelicans are a little better defensively. They're not kind of the home run, just super pace Pelicans we were used to last year. But all these price tags are just really good and a good matchup for them to pay off. I would have all these guys in real consideration for my cash game pool. And I think you can make really creative game stacks with Zion and Ingram and Lonzo on the other side.
Yeah, and I like that. I think this is a pretty good, as you mentioned, a pretty good game stack. And I agree with the Siakam news. If you know you're going to bench a guy, please, they should be more transparent. People are not happy about that. Just let someone know. You could have let us know an hour ago. Unless they just told them 5 minutes before the game, hey, we're not starting you, then I guess it makes sense because you're going to tell them first, the player, not just leak it. But I digress again, as you did. I'll get back to the game here. I think most of these guys are in good matchups here. I like both guards. If Siakam plays, a solid matchup too. Anunoby, I mentioned a lot of people in that 5K range. He had a dud of a performance in the last one, but before that, he scored 20. He's one of those guys that are hard to get right, but I like him in this environment here, and I like that price tag. It should be an up-tempo game. Norman Powell, I think you mentioned him earlier, finally got on track, and only 4K. To me, that's I said there's not many people around 4K. I much prefer him to McGee. I think he should play a very safe floor or 0 minutes floor, I should say. And if he's back, that's a fantastic value there at 4K. I know Nick Nurse said he's done it before. He's done it in big spots. He's done it for long durations. So he gets a long leash, and he's one of those guys that can just make shots and do a little bit of everything here. So I really like him at 4K for a value play. I usually tend to lean towards in the Lowry Van Vliet battle. I usually tend to lean towards who's hot or who had the other shooting game. Right now, Lowry is not taking I think he's taking 15 shots was the most he's taken. So I'm going to lean towards Van Vliet. He finally had that he's been on and off his first 4 games. I think he's going to string together 2 good ones. He's taking a lot more shots than Lowry, so I think it's safer. And when he's making his shots, he usually tends to distribute and find more people. When he's doing that, it's a little bit of when he's feeling it all over, not just on the score or on the points total. So I like him a little bit more here. But yeah, there's a lot to like in this matchup. One thing that we've come to find out, Chris Boucher might not fully play in this matchup against a physical big front court. So that's something to keep an eye out. Maybe we see more Alex Len, and Aaron Baines has not been playing much, so maybe we see more Alex Len in there. So that's something to take into consideration, but Steven Adams is not a scorer, so maybe they just put Boucher in there.
Yeah, agreed. I think the big thing with this team is we know exactly where their usage and where their opportunity is going to come from, and you get kind of all of it for a really reasonable price tag. Like, there's going to be no questions. It's going to be Siakam, Lowry, and Van Vliet. Powell is going to be running the second unit. You know, if Boucher runs into a good minutes game, you know, he can get there, steal some blocks. It's kind of the same thing with Andrew Nobi. There's just not a lot of surprises with the Toronto team.
Awesome. And right before we get to the Pels, I got to pause the show quick for a quick announcement. And this is the Bruise Letter is back, guys. If you haven't signed up for the Bruise Letter, we already have our first couple emails go out. But it's Aaron Brewski straight to your inbox. You can't find this information on any podcast. You can't find it on any article. You can't find it on the website. Can't find it on Twitter. Can't find it anywhere but his email newsletter. And it's all it's just an email newsletter filled with Aaron's most intimate fantasy nuggets, and it's exclusive, like I mentioned. But just go to bit.ly/BruiseLetter2021 and you get Aaron Brewski straight to your inbox. Again, that's bit.ly/BruiseLetter2021, and you get Aaron Brewski's intimate nuggets every time he sends them straight to your inbox. And also the Fantasy Pass, guys. So we already know that the draft season's over pretty much, unless you just really like late drafts if they allow that. But the draft season's over. But Fantasy Pass is still the best deal in the industry, and at only $44.99 per month, you get all the stuff that we're doing into the regular season with zero commitment. So you can sign up for 1 month for $5, and if you don't like it, cancel. We know you'll like it, but it's nice to have that option. So the Fantasy Pass gets everything like updated projections, new fantasy appraiser tools, schedule and streaming charts, pickups, drops, and the Discord that me and Aaron mentioned earlier with so many different channels to help you get one-on-one help with your team and any questions that you need answered. So please do check that out. Head to hoopball-.com and click on the Fantasy Pass ad just below the main media wall and sign up. And if you just want the DFS pass and get some DFS help with our articles and stuff and everything we do on the Discord, that is only $199 per month. So 2 fantastic things, and in my opinion, at very cheap value. But let's go right into this Pelicans game. Pelicans team, we can close it out. You mentioned Zion, very good for 78. I prefer him more than Collins in a cash game, especially. I think he's a little bit safer. Collins hasn't just been there right there, but we have Brandon Ingram at 81. Another guy, Brandon Ingram has been awesome. Normally, I don't like to target the Raptors, but they haven't looked like the Raptors of the last couple of years that we've been accustomed to. So to me, it changes a little bit, but I'll throw it over to you. Who do you like on this squad, and can you dig deep? It's hard to dig deep on a team like this when you know that they are playing 7 guys, and then 8th and 9th play about a handful of minutes.
Yeah. So it's the same guys we've been kind of attacking the whole season. Ingram and Zion are good price tags. I think they're probably appropriately priced for the way they've been playing and their current roles as kind of the lead shot takers and usage guys on the team. I don't think it's not a steadfast rule, but whenever I get the opportunity, I try not to attack Toronto's defense. They're just a good defensive team, and they're, like you said, they're a little weaker than they've been in the past without Ibaka and without Gasol. But Aaron Baines is still a really good defender. Chris Boucher is a really good rim protector, shot blocker. Anunoby is probably one of the best 3-4 wing defenders in the game. I think Siakam could probably make that claim too. They're just not a team I like to attack when I can avoid it. So for the most part, I think a lot of these guys are going to be tournaments for me. And we've talked about a lot of guys on the slate, like the Indiana guys, who are very similar in price, where Brogdon is 7,400, Oladipo is 6,700. And even the Toronto guys, where they get a little bit better of a matchup at similar tags, Siakam and Van Vliet and Lowry. I think I would rather go that direction in cash over these two guys, over Ingram and Zion. But I still can't fault the play if you wanted to go that way. They're just locked into the rules. You know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get a really good minutes floor. You're going to get really good usage. And they're going to be able to contribute in multiple facets. Going down a little bit, I think Lonzo's a guy I'm trying to play just about every day in tournaments, especially with everyone else kind of absorbing a lot of the ownership. Bledsoe was a really popular play the first couple slates of the season. And after burning everybody, Lonzo has kind of been the forgotten guy on this team a little bit. And just his profile is a guy where he can really spike for a big game. And you kind of saw that against OKC, where he went for 41 and flirted with a triple-double in just 32 minutes. So if it's a close game and he gets a big minute ceiling, that's it within his range of outcomes for just 6,600. And there's not many guys in this range, especially on this slate, that can hit that sort of ceiling. I like Oladipo a little more for cash. But I think you can get real creative with like a Lonzo Ball, RJ Barrett type of build in tournaments, and you're building a whole lot of upside for a pretty reasonable price tag.
And I like how you correlated that with the Indiana price tags, because they're pretty similar there. I think, Ingram, Zion, they're always in play for you. Ball is a pretty good option here at 6'6". I do like slightly Oladipo a little bit more just because the matchup. He's not going against Lowry, who I'm assuming should be on Ball. I'm not looking at Bledsoe. He's just I want him to go to the bench and be the sixth man on this team before I play him. I just don't think he fits well in this starting lineup. I just need to see more shooting there. Josh Hart's a guy who's rebounding the ball great, as he usually does. At 4,800, he turns into a semi-option for me. I'm not going to actively target him, but on a better matchup, 4,800 to him, I think he could hit that value if you need it. There's really just no other people on this team that you can feel safe with when you know that most of these, the starters, or not, I shouldn't say starters because Bledsoe too, but 7 people are going to get minutes here. Everybody else is really not. Some guy to look at, though, if you're going to dig deep, JJ Redick, if he's just feeling it, if this might be one of the games. I know last year the Raptors, their one Achilles heel, just like the Bucks, were giving up 3-pointers. So right now he's only made one shot in every game, just one. He's shooting terribly. But fun fact, who would have thought that? But if he starts hitting a couple, I can see his 18 to 23 minutes jump up to about 26, 27, because that's what they need is shooting. So if he starts hitting a couple and he's feeling it that game, you could get a guy who easily hits value at 35. But again, if he's not shooting well, which he hasn't yet, your floor is pretty much at the ground. So he's, to me, a GPP punt type of play that not a lot of people probably are going to play. Or maybe they will because they see that 3,500 and they say, oh, JJ Redick. But if he's on, he could get you 20 points there and you're paying nothing for him. So he would be someone I'm looking at as a pump play. But I'd prefer Ingram slightly more than Zion in this matchup. No, I prefer Zion slightly more than Ingram in this matchup. And I think I prefer Zion I said it more than Collins. I think I slightly prefer Zion more than Brogdon as we stand now, but things might change depending on who's in and who's out for the Knicks. So that's where I stand on that one too.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting slate. I think there's a lot of really unique directions you can go. There's a lot of really good cash plays. A lot of ways you can be different in tournaments. I think the big thing is there's not a whole lot of great value. We kind of talked about it. Norm Powell, I think at 4K is going to be really popular. Outside of that, I don't really know if there's very much cheaper. Maybe Dwayne Bacon, if we get some news on Fournier, he'll probably just, by virtue of the slate being no value, I think he'll probably garner some ownership. But it should be a fun slate. I think there's a lot to dive in here.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, and I think it could be a fun slate as well. But yeah, before we head on out of here, I just want to tell you guys one more time, give us a rate and review, drop one in there. Tell us what you like, what you don't like about the show. We'll try and help you cater that to you, or do incorporate what we hear more and take out what you guys don't like to hear. But yeah, give us a follow on Twitter as well. You can follow me at Santino Caccone. You can follow Aaron at Asmus Sports. You can also chat with us on Discord. We're there pretty much every day, throwing stuff in there and answering questions, helping people with their stuff. But before we go, Aaron, you want to say anything else to these guys before we head on out of here?
Yeah, I want to keep plugging the Discord every opportunity. It's a growing. We're still a pretty small community, but it's definitely growing, and people who have been involved there, I feel like, are learning quite a bit. And it's for $2 a month if you wanted to really learn how to play DFS and interact with us guys who are talking on the podcast a little more in depth when we have more news available to you. That's the way to do it, and where you can ask questions and just really learn the why we're playing certain guys. That's the way you do it. So please, if you get the Fantasy Pass, log on to the Discord and start asking some questions.
Awesome, man. Great. And that's it for another edition. Tomorrow we will be back. I believe it is Mike and Keith, I believe. I want to say Saturday. Yep, Saturdays, Sunday slates. We have Mike and Keith, so they'll hit you with that. I believe there's a couple more games on that one. But yeah, we'll be back here again tomorrow on another edition of Hoop Ball's DFS Today. Thank you guys for listening as always, and I can't wait to continue winning with you guys. Have a good night.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.